Hey y'all, welcome back to your girls channel. So excited to be with you today talking about part 2 of my emotional journey with OCD. In part 2, we are going to chat about how OCD almost ended my relationship with God. In part 1, I chatted about how OCD almost took my life. I would recommend that you go back and watch that video. I'm going to drop a link right here. Go back and watch part 1. I think there's some very real and honest information about how debilitating OCD can be. Now this week I was going to have my baby, my boo thing, my boyfriend on here chatting with you about how it really can be hard to support somebody with OCD. So he is still gonna come on here. We still are gonna make a video together. Life and schedules is just kind of challenging, and so he will be on here in part 3 talking to you about how OCD almost ended my relationship with him. So in the last video, I chatted with you about my worst seasons of OCD. I chatted with you about how it started. I had thought about bed bugs. Then it transitioned to I had thoughts about diseases. Then it transitioned to questioning my sexuality, and that's when it was at its worst. During the season of questioning my sexuality, of having these thoughts about, okay, am I gay or am I not gay? I seriously thought about taking my own life. I talk about this more in the last video, but this was such a low point in my life. And it's crazy because not long after that thought left, I had thoughts that almost ended my relationship with God. So here I was, almost ending my life, almost taking my own life because these thoughts were too bad. And then I got over that. And then the second thing I had to overcome was, okay, I almost lost my spiritual life. OCD almost made me not believe in God anymore. So it was crazy because when I was about 22 years old, I went to church for the first time, and I always knew about God, but I had never had a relationship with God. I never had this intimate, close relationship that He'd always wanted from me. And so when I was 22 years old, I was done doing it my way. I tried for 22 years of my life to kind of do it my way. It was comfortable, but it definitely wasn't as fulfilling. And so when I was 22, I gave my life to Jesus. I remember sitting in church in the front row. My best friend, she had brought me to church, and she sat my booty in the front row, and I just remember that that's where I felt God's presence for the first time. And in that moment, I felt the Holy Spirit, and the next Sunday I ended up giving my life to Christ and surrendering fully to God. And it's crazy because at that time was when OCD was at its worst. So around 6 months later, I had this thought about being gay or not. So it was crazy because even though I surrendered to Jesus and I was living this new and fulfilled life, I was still struggling terribly with thoughts, and I actually thought about ending my own life. And then after I fought that thought and was like, no, I have too much to live for. I have too many people that love me. Thank God that I battled the way that I did. But not long after that thought left about questioning my sexuality, the thought of, does God actually exist, came into my mind. And of course, at the time, I had no idea that this was OCD. I had no idea what to do with my thoughts. And so again, I thought this thought was real. So here I was, a baby Christian, and all of a sudden I had these thoughts about, oh my gosh, what if this is all just a hoax? What if this isn't real? What if I'm wasting my time going to church, going to Bible study? Like, what if this is all for nothing? And these were the questions that became very real in my mind, even though at that point I knew truth. I knew that I experienced the Holy Spirit. I knew that those goosebumps and that crying and that surrender, that was the Holy Spirit. I knew that, yet OCD made me think otherwise. So there was a point in that season that I almost walked away. I had lived around a year of being on fire for God and going to Bible study and going to church. And now all of a sudden I was like, I don't know if he actually exists, but the crazy thing is that thought is not truth, and I knew that. But at that time, I couldn't discern it because I had no idea what it was. Ultimately, this thought ended up lifting after a couple months, and I have not questioned it to that extent again, and it's just insane to me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's just insane to me how these thoughts can feel so real and intense for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and then they can lift and you never think about them again. So I just wanted to come on here today and just let you know about how OCD has truly attacked different parts of my life. It tried to take my physical life. It tried to take my spiritual life. I'm going to talk next week about how it tried to take my relationship. And I just want to say that if you're struggling with OCD, it is hard, especially when you don't have the tools and the resources to fight it properly. And I want to say to those of you who know someone with OCD, be gracious to them. Try to understand where they're coming from, but most importantly, just be there for them. So, thanks for watching part 2 of this series of how OCD has impacted my life personally. I'm excited to have my baby come on here to chat with y'all about how it's impacted our relationship and how it, quite frankly, almost ended our relationship. And I will see you next time. Bye! Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like this video. Show your girl some love. I don't know why I'm doing all the hand motions today. It's weird, but it's giving.